AFR On Demand is brought to you by Breck Golf. Try Beaver Creek today, just 20 minutes from downtown Baton Rouge in the Zachary area. They've got a PGA Tour driving range, a short game practice area, 30 to 40-yard practice shots. It's a great place to chip and putt and practice if you don't have time for a full round. Book your tee time today, golf.breck.org, golf.breck.org.
Matt Moscona.
I'm very important.
After further review.
Say it one more time.
After further review with Matt Moscona.
And here we go.
Live from the Raising Cane studio.
Let's ride!
And off we go. Welcome aboard. Glad you're with us. It's AFR presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Matt?
You're a loser, Matt!
Shut up, kid. Paul O'Neill.
They're chanting Paul O'Neill's name.
Musso.
I'm a Barbie girl in the Barbie world.
And Mr. Toby Tom Plate. All right, we're here. Glad you are as well. Get out there and make it a good one. Frank Schwab will be here in 15 minutes. Talk to Mikey Matuk next hour. Alan Faneca in hour 3. No Terrio today. He is waiting out the rain at the state track meet as Georgia Terriers competing for a state championship. That whole thing has been just literally, the track at LSU literally underwater. So, hell, he can come down the street and do radio with us. But we'll see. Probably not. But let us begin as we do every single day.
It's time to pop the top on another edition of AFR with Bud Light. Drink easy.
So we are trucking along throughout this offseason. And Lane Kiffin gave an interview to On3 to our buddy Wilson Alexander. And kind of gave an update on Sam Leavitt's timeline, and it's really good news. Kiffin said, quote, Sam Leavitt, he's going to be able to do full summer stuff. I don't know what the exact date is, but yes, he's going to be able to do full stuff in the summer. If you're wondering, the official summer strength and conditioning sessions with the staff begin like usually early mid-June, like June 10th to 15th, somewhere in there. And so remember, players can work out on their own right now. They can go on the field, do on-field work by themselves, just without coaches. They can organize 7-on-7s, throwing sessions. They can do all that stuff themselves. But the on-field work with coaches, the work with the coaches is the strength and conditioning official workout program, which starts in June. So that would be the date that you're targeting for when Leavitt would be part of the full summer strength and conditioning program. Then subsequent, they can go back to doing throwing sessions and all that sort of stuff until they get to fall camp, which would be at the end of July, beginning of August. We'll see what the dates are whenever they officially release them. So this was expected, but it's still kind of a relief. Remember, this was Lane Kiffin this was April the 7th. This was an update on Leavitt during camp, and I believe this is when he had the pins out of his foot on that Monday, and then so he wasn't there at practice. And Tuesday, Kiffin met with us, and this is what he said.
None of these are surprise. This is the timeline we expected, and had the screw removed yesterday, and everything went well. It was something that going into it we were going to know that it was going to be unfortunate. He was going to miss spring a lot of it, but that was going to allow the other guys opportunities. And just feel nowadays, it's a little easier to play quarterback than it used to be years ago as far as how long you've been there. And look at the previous place we were at. The guy didn't get there till the summer. So, kind of that went into the decision where I feel like years ago you've been really concerned that the quarterback's going to miss your spring. He's done a great job mentally in the meetings and walkthroughs and able to throw some individual before this procedure.
So that's a good reminder of the timeline that Leavitt's on and has been on. So it's expected, but it's still a relief knowing that you're going to have him there. Remember, it was during Leavitt's visit. We talked about this in January when Sam Leavitt made that visit when he was in the portal. It was when he made that visit that LSU kind of got to look at him and realized how bad that foot was. If you remember, that's when Damon Williams went in the portal, and that whole with the Washington quarterback. That's when that whole fiasco started. Sam Leavitt was here on his visit when Damon Williams went in the portal, and LSU kind of looked the other way. Took their eye off the ball with Leavitt. Leavitt got ticked and left, and then Kiffin ended up flying to Knoxville to go meet him at the airport. I mean, it was very rom-com energy there, if you remember how that all unfolded. But it was because when Leavitt got here, they saw really how severe the foot injury was and that it was going to be a delay. So they knew this all along, that he wasn't going to be available for spring. But the hope was he'd be ready for summer and for fall camp. And it looks like that was the hope. It looks like that is the target. Now, I'll remind you as well, he was Leavitt was limited throughout spring, but on that final day, that final Saturday of spring, we reported here, and Lane Kiffin later confirmed it, that Leavitt did participate in 7-on-7 the final day of spring. And the point I made then, and will reiterate, is, why would you risk that? And the answer is you wouldn't. All the money you have invested in Leavitt and just what he's going to mean to your ceiling in 2026, you wouldn't risk one day of 7-on-7s with Leavitt if it could set him back, which tells you there was no risk. Literally, there was no risk at all with relative to his foot or a setback. I mean, there's always risk when you play football. But with that, it was very obvious that Leavitt has been progressing. So this is really good news. And listen, LSU needs Sam Leavitt. That's another thing Lane Kiffin talked about in spring. At the very onset of spring, when he was asked for an update on the quarterbacks, Longstreet and Clark, this is what he said about not having Sam Leavitt.
Basically like everything in life, there's a cost and there's a benefit to everything that happens. And so, obviously we would love to have Sam and love to have him taking all the team reps fully healthy, but because he's not, it benefits them. And they've done a really good job with that. And it makes them show up because now they're up there with the ones. But it's been challenging for Sam. He's extremely competitive, so I know it bothers him that he can't do more, and that's a really good thing.
I think the question, you heard Lane Kiffin in the previous soundbite talk about, he said the previous guy or the place he was before didn't show up until summer. He's talking about Trinidad Chambliss, right? So they needed a backup option. We know the story, right? They found Chambliss on Twitter or whatever it was, and then recruited him from Ferris State, and he showed up in the summer. So Chambliss wasn't at Ole Miss's spring a year ago, and that seemed to work out okay. The other example I'll give you is Carson Beck. I mean, remember, Carson Beck was at Georgia in 2024. He had the UCL injury. I mean, he had Tommy John, basically. And not basically, did he? He had Tommy John. He tore his UCL. So Carson Beck had to he missed that whole spring and offseason with Miami and then had to ramp up in fall camp. And remember, Carson Beck this past year at Miami had a career year. He threw for 3,800 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. His completion percentage was 72.4. The year prior at Georgia, when he was starting in 2024, his completion percentage was 64.7. They threw almost the identical number of passes, 448 to 467. Even though they played more games at Miami last year, going all the way to the national championship game, he threw the same number of passes, and he increased his completion percentage by 8%. So Beck, without having spring, improved that next year, his first year at Miami. A lot of that is experience, and that is the gap that you have with Leavitt and the other two guys, Longstreet and Clark. Husan Longstreet played 4 games last year at USC. He attempted 15 passes. Really, the bulk of his attempts of his playing time came in 1 game. Landon Clark played in 16 games across 2 seasons at Elon. Trinidad Chambliss played in 23 games, started 16 times, won the Division II National Championship as the starting quarterback at Ferris State in 2024, where he threw for 2,900 yards and ran for 1,000, accounted for 51 touchdowns. I get it's Division II, but the point is, Chambliss had skins on the wall. He had played a bunch. The other guys haven't and don't. So you need Leavitt to achieve whatever your ceiling is in 2026. And I don't know what that ceiling is. You know, I could think back to 2024 when he was at Arizona State and they went to the college football playoff, and Leavitt didn't throw for 3,000 yards in that season. Remember, Cam Scadaboo ran for 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns that season. Say that again slowly. Cam Scadaboo ran for 1,700 yards and 21 touchdowns in 2024. I mean, Leavitt's a very good player. I'm not diminishing that. I mean, he was the number one quarterback in the portal. But we haven't seen Sam Leavitt throw for 3,500, 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, anything like that. That type of productivity. He's going to have to prove he could do that. He's going to have to do it without the spring, but he'll have the summer, as Lane Kiffin said, to ramp up there and be full go throughout the summer. So they need Leavitt healthy. It appears that he's going to be on this timeline, and that's it's fantastic news. All right, it's after further review. Our show open every day is brought to you by Bud Light. Drink easy with the great taste of Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, official beer of the Tigers, official beer of the Saints. Hoodats are on the practice field today. The rookies are for the first day of rookie minicamp. If you're dreaming of a black and gold Super Bowl and you want to toast the Saints and their quarterback, Tyler Shuck, make sure you do so with delicious ice cold Bud Light. You're going to be watching the baseball Tigers tonight, of course, or all weekend. Make sure as you watch the Tigers pulling form over there in Athens, you have plenty of delicious ice cold Bud Light, the official beer of AFR, the official beer of your Fighting Tigers of LSU. All right, it's after further review. Speaking of the Saints, I want to get a national perspective on the Saints draft and coming into this rookie minicamp. Chat with Frank Schwab when we come back next. Mikey Motzuk will be here in about 45 minutes as well. It's going to be about an hour and a half, actually. Hour and 15 minutes, sorry. Not soon, but Mikey will be here later, next hour. Let me knock out a break. It's AFR.
AFR.
Love telling you about River City's 1 Hour Air, where they're always on time or you don't pay a dime. 752-0001, 752-0001, 752-0001, or 1hourbr.com. Spell it out, O-N-E, 1hourbr.com for River City's 1 Hour Air. Tell you every day to look for the big yellow vans and trucks with the giant clock on the side. You know, today's one of those days where it's raining, get a little bit of a cool off with the rain, but you look at temps into next week, getting up in the upper 80s. Was looking like Thursday, the projected high is like 87. You know, the heat index will bump into the 90s. It's here, y'all. We're moving through May. The warm temps are here. Make sure your AC is ready to go. Call River City's 1 Hour Air. Have them come out for your preseason AC tune-up. They'll make sure your AC is running efficiently, effectively. They'll catch little issues before they come big, expensive issues. Extend the life of your unit. 752-0001, where they're always on time, or you don't pay a dime.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
The Saints opened up rookie minicamp today. Media was invited to attend. Ross Jackson has a feature up at LouisianaSports.net if you want to read it, what he saw today, all those notes. Always free over at LouisianaSports.net. Also free content at Yahoo. It's where we find Frank Schwab. He's on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab if you want to give him a follow. Frank, we appreciate it, man. How are you?
Hey, what's going on?
Another day down here, man, but a lot of people excited this offseason about New Orleans in year two with Tyler Shuck and what type of leap they may make with Kellen Moore. 10,000-foot view, your opinion on Tyler Shuck and the ceiling there entering year two?
Yeah, it's interesting to use the term ceiling because Shuck was an older prospect, and that was one knock I had on that pick. I was saying, well, he's not going to be, good by the time the Saints are good. Why are they using this pick on him? And he was fantastic. I was absolutely wrong. It was a great pick by them. And now, you look, and he's still older for a second-year guy, but he looks so good. And maybe that's just part of him being a little more polished than a lot of guys playing 7 different college seasons. So maybe he does. Maybe you can't, project him like you would a Caleb Williams. 3 years down the road, he's going to be much, much better. But I think he's really good. And as he goes, the team will go. I think they've started to put some good, solid talent around him on offense. ETN was a good signing. Tyson was a really, really exciting pick there at 8, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, I mean, I don't see any reason why they can't win the NFC South. The South is bad again, and the Saints were pretty good at the end of last season. I was impressed with Kellen Moore. So, I mean, to say, it's a bad division, but who cares? You win and you make the playoffs. I'm sure Saints fans would be thrilled with that in year 2 of Kellen Moore. So I don't see them being a Super Bowl contender or anything, but I think it's perfectly reasonable to think they could win the division.
Why did you like the Tyson pick?
I just think he had the highest upside of all the receivers, and if he would have been healthy his whole college career, he would have been. He wouldn't have been there at 8. I think he would have been probably where Carnell Tate was drafted, number 4. I think Tyson's a better receiver than Carnell Tate. He's just the injury. Look, the injury stuff is real, and I get why the Titans would pick Tate over Tyson, because Tyson can't stay healthy, and it's a lot of recurring stuff. But if he ends up staying healthy, I think he's got the highest upside, and I think he matches really well with Chris Olave. You look, these boom bust picks don't always work out. Maybe Tyson's just one of these guys who's always going to be hurt, right? Like it does happen that way for sure. But Christian Watson with the Packers, a good example of that. But I just, if that's the only question he hasn't answered and the talent is obvious, then I like taking a gamble like that. You're taking a gamble on a really, really high upside guy. That it seems like a perfect fit right now for what the Saints are trying to do on offense.
Frank, you also talked about Kellen Moore. Look, for obvious reasons, he's not a guy that's going to get a lot of conversation nationally. I mean, the Saints are just, they're a losing team. He's a first-year coach. What is your opinion, if you have any, of Kellen Moore for 1 year as a head coach?
I thought he did an excellent job. I really did. Look, they were 1-7, I believe. I think it was just 1-7, maybe 1-8. And at that point, with that roster, which was really, really deficient, I thought the Saints were going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL last year. At that point, it could have gotten really ugly in the second half of the season. Look at the Jets. The Jets, were outscored by 157 points over the last 8 games. Those guys just kind of gave up. And that's always a problem, always a concern when you start that deep in a hole. When you're 1-7, we're not going to the playoffs. Like, what's the point? But he played, as you guys know, played so well down the stretch, and we're beating legitimate teams. And, really making life difficult on all these teams vying for the NFC South title. That I think that's a reflection of the coach, period. And, Kellen Moore doesn't come off as this rah-rah guy. I mean, he's kind of that new breed, I think, of coaches, like Mike McDonald. Mike McDonald, the Super Bowl winning coach, he's not a boisterous guy. If you're around him, he's kind of a flatline personality guy, but guys really respect him because of he knows what he's doing. He's a leader. He'll put you in the best positions to win. And I think the Saints found that with Kellen Moore. I think that they're playing hard for him because they knew, hey, this guy knows what he's doing. This guy's going to be here for a while. We can win games with this guy. And I thought the progress they showed in the second half reflected so well on Moore in that hire that I'm on board. I really think that he's their guy going forward, and they should be very excited about him. And I know it's only a half season, and we'll see going forward, but that was a really, really positive step, just the way they battled in the second half when they really had nothing to play for.
Frank Schwab's here at Yahoo Schwab. You want to give him a follow there, you can read his stuff. Also, the other sort of narrative here, Frank, is about the 2 veteran players that remain to be seen what's going to happen with them in Cam Jordan and Alvin Kamara. I think everyone here has made up their mind, their opinion of what should happen there. I'm curious what the conversations, if any, around the league are about those 2 players.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because the Saints have really they seem to want them around for what look, there's a young team, maybe you need some veteran presence there. Yeah, and you kind of at this point, why not just go ahead? Like they are going to help you this year. I mean, it's not like the Saints have anything behind ETN at this point, running back, and Jordan's been a pro for them a really, really long time, really good player. So I think it's you just reach a point in the off season where it's like, well, we're not making any trades for these guys probably, so let's just play it out. They're 2 good players, and like I said, this team should feel like we can win the division. Why not? Like it's that 8-9 won the division last year. So you look at that, these guys can be assets for that. Alvin Kamara, his salary might not be what you want from a number 2 running back at this point, but he can still play. He's still better than whoever you would have at number 2 running back. Cam Jordan's still going to help your defense, which is a work in progress. So I'm kind of thinking the Saints just, they're going to be Saints this year and see where it goes and see, maybe at the trade deadline that there's some team that's desperate need of a running back or something. But right now, I don't see them moving just because, once you pass the draft, that stuff doesn't happen very often.
I know you do a lot of sports betting content as well. The Saints they're plus 265 to win the division. Tampa's plus money is the favorite at plus 165. A little surprised to see the Saints ahead of both Carolina and Atlanta. How do you feel about, you said like the Saints, I agree. Of course they can win the division because it's a bad division. But how do you think they stack up this year with the other three teams? Like what would the pecking order be for you right now, from jump at the start of the season?
It's hard. It is, because all these teams are really flawed, but you can kind of talk yourself into a positive outlook for any of them. The Falcons really, really good late last season, beat the Rams. I think won 4 in a row, before, maybe 5 in a row, to end it. And I think they upgraded a coach with Stefanski. But yet you look at the quarterback situation, and you're like, Tua? Really? Penix? Really? These are your guys? Like, I don't know about that. And they have flaws on their roster. Carolina was not a very good team over the course of last season. They had some terrible games in there. Their offense was not good, but yet they did win the division. They did beat the Packers. They did beat the Rams. They could have beat the Rams in the playoffs there. And they added. You spent a ton on Jalen Phillips, and you did some good. Devin Lloyd. They did some good things in free agency. You see, maybe they're going to be better. The Buccaneers had the most talent in the division. That roster is the best one in the division. But for some reason, they were one of the worst teams in football over the last 10 games last year, and Baker Mayfield just fell apart. I don't know why exactly. So I guess I'd go with the odds makers here and probably say the Buccaneers should be the favorite because they just do have the most talent. I don't necessarily trust that coaching staff. So that's why it's a free-for-all, because each of these teams, I can tell you the good things, and I can also tell you, this is why they're not going to be any better than 8 wins again this year. And I don't foresee anybody in this division winning 10 games. I really don't. I think whoever wins, it's going to be probably in that 9-win range. So it's anybody's at that point. No, there's no team that's that bad, and there's no team that's that good. I'm doing, I'm kind of doing my power rankings for the summer, and we come out with their previews during the summer. And I'll just tell you, the 4 NFC South teams, I believe, are within 5 spots of each other. They're all within in the mid-20s. They're not high up, but they're all bunched together because I don't really think there's much separation between any of them.
It's Frank Schwab, Yahoo Sports at Yahoo Schwab. You want to give him a follow? Hey, before you go, I know you were sharing on Twitter a couple of days ago about the Brendan Sorsby situation. How is that perceived around NFL circles?
Oh, man. It is so complicated because there's just so many layers to it. And I think the best answer to that is they don't know. The NFL teams don't really know the scope of this thing. I think everything changes based on, okay, what's found out? Was Sorsby betting against his team when he was at Indiana, which we don't know yet? What's the scope of all of this? And NFL teams don't know that. So they're really, I think a lot of NFL teams are unprepared to answer that question if Sorsby does enter the NFL, apply for a supplemental draft entry, which rarely happens in the NFL. Does the NFL try to block that? Would that be legal? Charles Robinson, my colleague, wrote just a tremendous piece about all of the different moving parts here, and the evaluation of the players is not complete either. I think NFL teams are really looking forward to, all right, we'll see this full season. He looks like he might be a first-round type of guy, but we've heard that from guys, and then sometimes they don't do well their last season and fall a bit. And that happened with a couple, Carson Beck in this draft. Guys like that. Was that going to happen with Sorsby, or was he going to move up and solidify himself as a top 10 guy? That part is missing from the equation now. So I think NFL teams are just kind of a little bit like, we don't know. We have no idea what's happening with the off-field stuff. We don't really know about the on-field stuff. So he's just a huge mystery for them. And one they're going to have to figure out, at least by 2027. He'll be in that draft, but it's a very, very complicated situation.
Yeah, if he is ineligible for college, the supplemental draft would be a really interesting route if they do follow it that way. We'll keep tabs. He's Frank Schwab. You can follow him at Yahoo Schwab. Of course, Yahoo Sports NFL writer. We appreciate it, Frank. Thanks for the time.
Absolutely appreciate it.
Yep, it's our pleasure. We're brought to you by Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, Arco.com, Arco.com. Remember, this is industrial Generac generator power. This is a generator for your business, your commercial building, municipalities, nursing homes, grocery chains, hospitals, hotels, banks, chemical plants, gas stations, universities. I mentioned government municipalities. These are generators that are built for businesses. They like to say our business is your business. That's Arco Power Systems, ARCCO, Arco.com, Arco.com. Think about what a loss of power means to your business. At Arco, they make sure the roads are working, the phones are working, dispatchers for 911. Life continues through a power outage, and Arco is there to make sure that happens. Everything is turnkey. They could sell, service, lease, install your Generac industrial generator, arco.com, ARCCO, arco.com for Arco Power Systems. Interesting there talking to Frank Schwab. To get a national perspective on the Saints. We look at it every single day, so it's interesting to hear the perspective of someone who doesn't cover just the Saints and his opinion on Tyler Shuck and Kellen Moore, and to see if they may share some of the similar opinions that a lot of people here do. And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway, is you have this pretty consistent sort of unanimous feeling of optimism around Tyler Shuck. I mean, he started 9 games last year. So a little more than half this. He played in 11. He started 9. So you don't have a very big sample. But you have enough of a sample to say, I want to see more, and it's worth investing. And that's what the Saints are doing. So they are going to be a really interesting team, the Saints, this year, because Frank's right about all those pieces in the NFC South to say nobody's great. I mean, Carolina has the third best odds out of 4 teams to win the division. They're the reigning division champs. So, yeah, I mean, it's a wide open division. One of these teams got to go to the playoffs. Might as well be the Saints. And if Tyler Shuck builds upon what he did last year, then there's no reason it couldn't be them sort of elevating this year in year 2 of Kellen Moore and Tyler Shuck. Plenty to talk about throughout the offseason. Saints did have rookie minicamp today. Kellen Moore met with reporters after. We'll get some of that a bit later in the show. Let me knock out a quick break. Friday show is brought to you by Don Juan Cigar Bar. When we come back, go around the SEC, and another national analyst really likes LSU as a college football playoff team. You'll hear from him next. It's AFR.
AFR.
Slow internet is the worst. I get it. It's first world problems. When you see the little spinning wheel, you don't have just an immediate click and load. It's just maddening. Rev Fiber, take care of that. You look outside a day like this on Friday where there's torrential rain, you're hearing the flood warnings everywhere, hail all over the place, might be power outages. What does that mean for phone, internet, cable, all that stuff in your home or your business? Well, if you ever had Rev Fiber, it means nothing, because when they lay their fiber, it's buried under the ground, so you don't have to worry about outages. You don't have to worry about a tree falling on the cable line. It's all buried under the ground. So you get a better product, lightning fast internet speed, better price, local service. Why haven't you called Rev yet? It's Rev Fiber, R-E-V, RevFiber.com, RevFiber.com. To see their service areas and to learn more, check them out online at RevFiber.com.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Earlier this week, Pete Futak, College Football News, came on the show, said he thinks LSU is a national championship contender. Chris Doering of the SEC Network came on the show this week and said, LSU under Lane Kiffin year 1, playoff or bust. They should be a championship contender. Josh Pate was on with our buddies Crane and Cone, and he agrees.
I try and be a little reasonable in expectations so I don't get my heart broken in September. So what I'm going to choose to expect from them is a lot of flashes, hopefully not disaster, but a peak of what's possible early in the season. Hopefully that comes in a win. But like the way I think about that as it manifests itself in the Clemson game is they win 23-16, but it's the kind of game where the 4 of us are talking afterwards and we're saying they won and they could have played so much better. You saw so many missed opportunities. Okay, well, that's the entry point for LSU. Now, if they're able to stay relatively healthy, they should do what a newly built team should do. And that is scale. And then you just hope you get to that November inflection point. I think at their high end, they can compete for a national title.
Josh Pate, another one. Thinking LSU could very well compete for a national title year 1 under Lane Kiffin. It's, I really try. Look, I picked the team a year ago to go to the playoff. So that was the baseline expectation. You had all that investment, and I thought they would lose the opener to Clemson and thought they'd lose one more along the way and go 10-2. That was my preseason pick for LSU, and they'd be in the playoff. Obviously, that didn't happen. Now, Nussmeier having the season he did, we later learned the cyst and all that stuff, was just a giant part of that. I mean, all throughout fall camp, the conversation we had was, I think the way I described it was there was a Grand Canyon-sized drop-off from Garrett Nussmeier to Michael Van Buren. And you very clearly saw that. It's fair to wonder, man, and maybe in the annals of LSU history, it'll be a great what-if, like, what if Ryan Perrilloux didn't get kicked off the team in 2008? You know, how different does LSU football look through that? What if Bo Ryan hadn't tragically died in that plane crash in 1980? There's plenty of those, right, throughout history. And maybe we'll look at the butterfly effect of Garrett Nussmeier having the season that he did with the cyst as part of that. What if Nussmeier was healthy and that offense churned better and was a complementary piece to the defense that finished top 30 in total defense nationally? You know, are they a playoff team? Is Brian Kelly still the coach? Is Lane Kiffin not here? Is Lane Kiffin at Florida maybe? You know, who knows? Different convos, different days. So I try to maybe give myself a little bit of pause as we're projecting and talking about this throughout the offseason. But the thing Josh said that I do find myself agreeing with is the timeline of how things could go, because I think the way that I've said it is I think October is really manageable. Now, you do have a road trip to Auburn, and you got A&M at home, and I'm not saying that's easy, but A&M lost a ton from this past year's team, and Auburn, new coach, new system, new quarterback, a lot of new there. You're going to be favored on the road in that game, right? So I think October is manageable. So if you can get through September with all your new, you should win at home against Clemson. Can you take care of Ole Miss on the road week 3? If you get through September, you should be able to dodge the landmines in October, which sets up for a massive November with a brutal schedule. Bama, Texas, at Tennessee, at Arkansas to finish. So, yeah, I tend to agree that you hope you're hitting your November inflection point, but you have to get there relatively unscathed, because it's hard to imagine navigating November without stepping on a landmine. But another respected voice looking at these Tigers going, yeah, year one under Kiffin. Why not? They should be there. All right, it's after further review. We'll go around the SEC in just a second. We are brought to you by First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthLand.com, FirstSouthLand.com. Thinking of buying land? Your first call should be to First South Farm Credit. How about everyone who's listening, watching in the New Orleans area? You know, so many people, you live in the city, maybe you start having a family and think, I think I'd maybe like to live on the North Shore and commute. Well, First South Farm Credit is a great option to help you maybe buy that land. They have an office there in a meet. You want to buy that land in St. Tammany or Tangipahoa Parish and commute into the city where you have the city amenities but the rural lifestyle. First South Farm Credit can help you do that. FirstSouthLand.com, FirstSouthLand.com. Thinking of buying land? Make sure your first call is to First South Farm Credit. They have been first in agriculture, first in land lending for more than 100 years. First South Farm Credit. FirstSouthLand.com. FirstSouthLand.com. Okay, we do it every day about this time. Let's go around the SEC.
Around the SEC, bringing you the biggest news from the nation's best conference. The Alabama Crimson Tide.
Defensive lineman Jeremiah Beeman is ahead of schedule on his road to recovery. Was injured, actually started the opener against Florida State a year ago, and then suffered a torn ACL, was lost for his redshirt freshman season. But according to the coaches there, ahead of schedule on his road to recovery, and should be top speed whenever the Crimson Tide open a fall camp.
The Florida Gators.
Running back Andrew Beard, 4-star out of Georgia for the class of 2027. He's committed to the Florida Gators. Picked Florida over Clemson, Georgia, and Tennessee. 14th pledge of the class for the Gators, the 9th best running back in the country, the 165th overall prospect.
The Mississippi State Bulldogs.
Forward Trevor Reed set to join Mississippi State next season. One of two family members will be wearing the maroon and white. He's a 6'8", 215-pounder. His younger brother Tristan also signing to play with the Bulldogs as part of the high school class. So let's see. Started 19 games this past year, led the team in points scored, was second in rebounds. Trevor Reed joining Mississippi State.
The Oklahoma Sooners.
Guard Quincy Wadley has committed to Oklahoma. He was the top available remaining recruit for the 2026 basketball class, the number 43 overall prospect in the country. He is Oklahoma's highest-rated signee since Trae Young back in 2017. He's a 6'4" guard out of Virginia.
The Kentucky Wildcats.
Mark Pope keeps having to answer the question why he doesn't have a traditional general manager as they keep missing out on prospects. Well, the staff is organized with several people supporting Mark Pope, but in 2 seasons, 46 and 26, and he's brought in 4 players during the current portal cycle while 7 have left. Pressure, heat, ramping up there on Mark Pope in Lexington. All right, there you have those around the SEC. We're glad to have you hanging out with us here on a Friday edition of AFR presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar. Remember, no Terrio today. The LHSAA state track meet is today, and the Terrio's youngest, Georgia, is competing for Parkview Baptist. So I know there was a weather delay in the track meet and all that, but Terrio's out there, and so we'll miss him today, but we'll have him back next week, and we'll look forward to that. So no Terrio today. We got a ton to get to. Remember, LSU and Georgia, game 1 is at 5 Central, so an hour and 16 minutes away from first pitch for LSU and Georgia in a massive game. Of course, it's Jay Johnson going against his former assistant Wes Johnson, who's now the head coach at Georgia, Wes Johnson, in his media availability Thursday night, talked about this LSU team and his observations.
Let's not forget, as I've told a lot of people, they were preseason number 1 in a lot of polls, and they're extremely, extremely talented. I just finished their offensive breakdown. Got as good offensive bats as anybody we've seen in the league. For whatever reason, their record doesn't show that. Obviously we're not there. We're not their practices or know what's going on in their locker room, clubhouse, so to speak, or any of that kind of stuff. So I just know this: they're ultra talented. They've got a really good lineup, and it's going to be a really good test.
Bulldogs have an opportunity to win the SEC this weekend. They have been awesome. They're 18-6. They're leading the conference. Haven't pitched it certainly as well as they've hit it, but they're arguably the best offensive team in the country. So a massive challenge for William Schmidt here today against that Bulldog lineup. First pitch again about an hour and 15 minutes away from right now. Let me knock out a break. Some news out of New Orleans today. It was the open of rookie minicamp, and got some contract news we want to dabble in for the Saints. We'll get to that next on AFR.
After further review.
With a monsoon like this, ain't nobody swimming in the pool. You might be swimming down the street in these flash flood waters. Be careful out there, by the way. And our friends over at Duplessis Builders are certainly not digging today either in a monsoon like this. But it's dry inside, and it's certainly dry enough for you to grab your phone or go to your computer and hit up duplessisbuilders.net. Tell you about the website every day because they did an awesome thing building out that functionality on the site for pools and for outdoor kitchens, by the way. But if you go to the website, you'll see the Pick Your Pool tab right there on the homepage. There's 11 different pool designs you can choose from. Now, if you want to do something custom, you can design your own pool and do something totally custom with Duplessis. They're awesome. But they have, it's a really cool function to sort of play around with. There's 11 different pool designs. You can go through and choose all of your features and finishes and design it right there on the website right now. It's duplessisbuilders.net, duplessisbuilders.net.
After further review with Matt Moscona, presented by Don Juan Cigar Bar.
Saints opened up rookie minicamp today, and they did also announce 7 draft class signings. Now, this used to be this used to be way more eventful. It's just not anymore because rookie contracts are capped under the current CBA, as we remind you all the time. You used to have holdouts. You just don't see that rookies anymore because rookie contracts are capped and their slot value. So basically all these guys know exactly what they're going to make based on their draft slot. So the Saints did, in fact, announce 7 draft signings. Say the lone unsigned selection is Christian Miller. There's this... remember, this became a thing last year because the only contracts that are guaranteed are first rounders in the NFL, where every dollar of the rookie deal is guaranteed. And last year, this kind of became a little bit of a conversation with guys at the top of round 2 getting their deals 100% guaranteed. For what it's worth, a year ago, the number 42 selection, which is where Miller went this year, was Mason Taylor out of LSU.
Mason Taylor!
And he earned 91% of his deal. By the way, shout out Ross Jackson, has all this at Louisiana Sports.net. So Mason Taylor's deal was 91% guaranteed. The year before was 55% at that value. So you're starting to see second-round pick guaranteed money go up. So that's the one holdout right now is Christian Miller, and it's really just that. It's how much of that deal is going to be guaranteed. So, but the Saints were out there on the practice field today. About an hour's worth of work that the media got to watch. A lot of individual. There's some practice video that you're seeing out there. And after the rookie camp practice, Ellen Moore did, in fact, meet with the media, kind of gave an overview of the day.
All right, welcome back to some football. We had 55 guys here today, so it was an awesome day. Obviously, about an hour work. We'll do one more day tomorrow, very similar, and so a bunch of good stuff. Good to get those guys out there. The thing that always shows up in this thing is they've been basically track athletes for the last 3 months, so we got to build this thing up as we go, acclimate these guys. But other than that, it was some good work.
And then he did give the update on Christian Miller.
Yeah, he's fine. He's just a couple of these guys, you come in and you just put guys in different levels as far as the maintenance plan just to make sure these guys are ramping up the right way. And so that's part of this process when these guys come in is just, checking in on them from a body standpoint. And so he wasn't out there necessarily doing any field work, but he'll be fine. They
did follow up at the end of the press conference about Miller, basically insinuating is that actually an injury?
Miller, just to clarify, is it an injury or is it just like shit?
No, he just had a little injury coming in. Nothing big. Yeah.
Okay. So not a holdout because of obviously the contract isn't signed. So that is part of the ongoing conversation. But even if that contract wasn't signed, he could still be on the field for rookie camp today and this weekend, but not there today because of, as Kellen Moore said, a little bit of an injury situation. So something to monitor as we move forward. But it is after further review. Hey, just real quickly, it is storming today, as you well know. If you're in it, you've seen it. Want to remind you, Parish Construction and Roofing, parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. It's me, Ontario, and Tilly, and our great staff, Joe, everybody. This is the time of year where our phones go crazy because it rains every day. And every time it rains is when people realize they have roof leaks. So let me remind you of a few things. First of all, I would love it if you would call us at Parish. We were honored to be named the best roofing company in the Advocates Best of Baton Rouge. That was voted on by you. So thank you for that. We won Best of Ascension earlier in the year. So thank you for that. But even if you don't call us, please call a reputable local roofing company. Door knockers are out, especially when there's weather like today. And so often you have people that do shoddy work, people that are unlicensed, and that if you have an issue are gone, never to be heard from again. So we would love it if you would give us the opportunity to earn your business at Parish Construction and Roofing. But even if you don't call us, call a local licensed, reputable company that you know will be here in the event that something's wrong in the future. Parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. You go to the website, fill out the form on the homepage. We'll be in touch with you just immediately. Parishbuilt.com. Do business. That's why we say do business with someone you know. Parish Construction and Roofing. Parishbuilt.com, parishbuilt.com. That said, no Terrio today, as I mentioned, because of the state track meet. Georgia Terrio is running today. So good luck to Georgie. Trying to end her career with her 11 bajillionth state championships, soccer, track, individual, all this stuff. I mean, the cross country, the Terriers, just hanging banners left and right everywhere. Mikey Mott took in 35 minutes. We will talk to Alan Faneca in hour number 3. When we come back, Will Wade does it again, man. For the third consecutive day, a public commitment for Will Wade who's continuing to add on to the roster. And you're starting to see a very common theme with the players that Will Wade is adding. So we're going to dive into that a little bit when we come back right after the top of the hour. There's one more, well, actually there's a couple more Saints contract things I want to talk about. They restructured Pete Werner's contract today, and I think that has actually a pretty clear indication of where that's headed for the future with Pete Werner.
After further review.
As we wrap up hour number 2, we remind you about Rouse's, the official supermarket of the New Orleans Saints. Rouse's.com, Rouse's.com. Hey, y'all, Sunday is Mother's Day. I want to remind you that, of course, you know that. Maybe you're cooking for mom. Great. Get by Rouse's. They got boiled crawfish, but they got fresh lobster at Rouse's. If you want to go pick your lobster and prepare it at home, you can do that. Maybe you want flowers. Market fresh roses at all 76 Rouse's location. So you want to get flowers, maybe a lobster dinner, flowers, maybe a bottle of wine, maybe mimosas for mom for lunch, whatever it may be. You're having brunch. Rouse's has everything you need. You're making groceries this weekend. You can always go to the website or the app, see the weekly ad with how you can save as you're doing your grocery shopping there at Rouse's. And remember to shop the Rouse's branded products so you're supporting great local businesses as well. Rouse's, this feels like home.